The online testing course is unique among our training certifications in that it's the essential starting point for learning the core building blocks you'll need for online testing. Let's cover some of the elements of online testing you'll learn throughout the course. During the course sessions recorded at Marketing Experiments Marketing Sherpa Optimization Summit in Boston, Flint guided students through a simple step-by-step methodology that can be used as a repeatable framework to build customer theory. And now it's your turn to join your peers as Flint walks you through our patented testing heuristic, a methodology distilled from over 15 years of online testing and research. You'll also learn the role a research question plays in testing and how to frame it properly to guide your approach to treatment design. The course will also show you how to set up your metrics program to cultivate essential customer insights from your analytics while avoiding the 4 main validity threats found in online testing. And finally, you'll learn how to interpret your test results, measure the true financial impact of a test, and how to determine what to test next.
Without a testing methodology that is rigorous and systematic, we're going to continue to lose money because there are no expert marketers. There are only experienced marketers and expert testers. I don't like the grammar of tester, but the point is so important. Let's keep looking. Behind me is a heuristic. It's a simple heuristic. U equals 2Q plus T plus M plus 2V plus I. The coefficient, as in the conversion sequence, relates to the relative impact of each of those variables on your chances of developing a useful test. A valid test might satisfy an academic as a good test, but many times we run valid tests that are not useful. Utility is the sort of aim here because all of us are in an environment where there are realities, deadlines, and there are numbers that we have to hit. And so we have to balance the rigor and the approach of good science with our need to achieve a result. Now, we have a problem. In fact, I don't know that many of us recognize how powerful that problem is, but one of our ways that we're going to address that problem is take you through this patented test protocol tool that we've asked you to download. It is a systematic tool that enables us to control and work with the outcomes of every test and to squeeze the most value out of the process. Step 3, we identify the research question that has the greatest potential customer learning. Did you notice that? It's not the one that somebody thinks might be a serious opportunity to get a jump. Indeed, most of the time when we're designing these, there's a group of people around the table and they're sort of debating and discussing what should be in the new treatment, and the most influential person at the table has an or a disproportionate impact on the decision, and the design by committee process takes place, and we have essentially built a camel instead of a horse. I've said to you earlier, somebody said that a camel is a horse put together by a committee. And what you end up with is a camel for a treatment, and it's not going to be your best performing treatment because it's a design by compromise process. It's not how to do this. You need to design by science, and it should be a science dynamic, not a social dynamic that guides the process. But the actual construction of a testing treatment follows the methodology I want to teach you right now. So we are now working with a second field set on the test protocol. And it talks about the variable and the value. Now, you need to know the difference for this afternoon between a variable and a value. So what can we learn? Well, here is some essential definitions. Control, and these definitions will be very important later today. The control is the presentation against which the performance of the experimental treatment is compared. It's the starting point. It's the page you already have up. The treatment is the presentation of new values for whatever variable we're testing. We'll explain that in a moment. People get variables and values mixed up. You don't want to do that. What's the difference between a variable and a value? A variable is let's suppose you were testing headline color. Headline color would be the variable, and the values would be red headlines, green headlines, and blue headlines. Let's suppose you were testing calls to action. Well, if the headline is, if the call to action is your variable, then your values might be sign up now, click here, learn more, reserve your free seat. Those would be different values, okay? Or they might even be the shapes of the buttons. So you have a general element to be tested, and then you have the specific version. That's the ways to sort of remember it. The general element and the specific version. Now, let's look at the control and the treatment here.
You can't think of metrics like it's a game. It's not points, okay? But yet, you look at PPC channels, you look at a lot of different specialties, and that's all they do is they play it like a game. You've got to transfer that how many into why so. Why so is a way to understand the people coming to your pages, looking at your emails, clicking on your tabs. And here's the good news. You've got a long list of metrics, and you don't know where to start. But we discovered that all metrics can be organized into 4 categories: amount, source, nature, and results. You know, Dr. Flint gave me a really good lesson, actually, on a recent trip to New York. He said, John, and we must have been talking about my marriage. He's like, poor decisions are a result of poor perspective, right? We make decisions based off of what we see, but when we're completely ignoring something else or missing something else, we look back and we say, what in the world was I doing? It's kind of like when you make something in the past and you look at it and you're ashamed. You're like, oh, this is so bad, right? Lack of perspective. It's something that you get over the years. The good news about these 4 categories, here's the secret. Each of these 4 categories tell you something about the customer. For source, it's the who. For amount, it's the where and when. For the result, it's the what. And for nature, it's the why.
You could have a PhD in marketing and probably not understand those impacts on validity. Subsequently, there are many, many tests that are being run where we do not see validity. In fact, you saw an earlier slide where we benchmarked with thousands of marketing companies. 85% conceded that they're not doing accurate validity testing. Now listen, it's worse to run a test and gain a false sense of confidence than it is to run no test and be more cautious. So we need to understand validity. And in online testing, there are these 4 common effects. And the first one is history, and we're going to look at it right now. See, when you launch a new website, everybody's waiting to see the performance, and if you screwed up, you're in big trouble. Management's looking, how's this performing? We said never do that. Initiate a 90-day test cycle, and management can't complain because when they see something that's wrong, your point is, no, we're in the test cycle. Give us the finish of the test cycle. And you basically iterate your way right in. We don't even recommend when you design a new website that you launch with one site, but the key pages, you have 2 or 3 versions of each of the key pages ready to test as soon as you launch. And you will iterate yourself into the finest and best performing site. And that changes everything. And now when the agencies come with a new idea, the answer is, well, of course, as long as it's certified, we can run it. But first it has to be tested. So no one gets to change what's working unless a test proves that it's better. Does that make sense? That's an intelligent, cutting-edge way to run an enterprise. If all my tests win, I'm not pushing the envelope. It's not about getting a lift on every test. It's about truly designing those experiments so that you're maximizing the learning and the wisdom that you aggregate from the customer. You should design tests that do not produce a lift. And your supervisor or your manager or they need to understand that. Most of them don't. I had a woman come up to me yesterday and talk to me about a test that didn't produce a lift, and she was using the word failure. And I had to correct her and say, was it valid? Yes, it was valid. Did you learn this and this? She said, yes. I said, that's not a failure. A failure is a test that is not useful, either because it's not valid or because it didn't get a lift. And the learning, it's underperforming the basic requirement. That's a successful test.